guys, how are you doing today? I've got the day off from plastering again today due to a job being postponed, but we're in tomorrow, I got word. So I've been given my duties here at home. We've got some walls that need a little bit of tidying up. Now, I wanted to do a video today. If you've never picked up a trowel and attempted plastering, then this video is for you. So carry on watching. I'm going to show you the best ways to plaster if you've never done it before, little pit holes you might come across, and just a few little hints and tips of you know, how to get it kind of like working for you. To be honest with you, plastering for the very first time, it's a bit like the Matrix. Nobody ever makes their first jump. The real issue is getting the stuff out of the bucket, onto your hawk and trowel, and then onto the wall. That's the thing that's kind of like pretty unteachable. You need to practice that. I'm going to give you a few hints and tips on how to get started with that. First of all, we're just going to have a little look at the areas that need plastering. I'm just going to do this bit of wall here. There's a couple of nails out there that I need to pop out. These used to be outside brick sheds, but it's been incorporated with an extension to become a utility area. So we've had a damp issue down there from the soil pipe from the bathroom's been leaking. I've got in there and fixed that. We did a video about that previously called the Quick Fix Cowboy. You might want to watch that one. So we've got this damp issue. The damp issue has been remedied, so this is just the staining from when it was all very wet. Basically all that's up with this wall is it's just a little bit tired. It's had a few pictures on it. It's got a few little holes. It's the general flatness is okay. I mean, I did plaster this when the extension was first done. The condition of this is probably, you know, on a point where you might be able to get away with just filling it and sanding it. That is another option, but I am a plasterer and we're going to cover the whole thing and give it a nice new fresh look. So we've got that wall to do. You'll have to excuse the dog Roxy. She's deaf now, she's 13 years old, and she doesn't really do much these days. So yeah, she's probably going to be there for the duration of the video. Same as this wall, where all the recycling and everything gets off. Cleared it away, and look, it's all dirty. It all needs freshening up in here. Again, where shelves have been put up and things, I've removed all them. There's holes that need filling. So, you know, it's one of those things. You can either take the extra time and fill it, paint it, have another look at it, fill it, paint it again, or you can have a go at plastering and try and get it done in about 3 hours and have it all brand new and like ready to paint and have a brand new fresh looking wall. So that's what we are going to do. So what we need to do to these walls to prep them up prior to putting any plaster on is we need to give them a coat of PVA. Now you can use other different bonding agents like SBI. SBI is probably a little bit overkill for you if you're a DIYer, and it's very harsh. So we're just using general PVA. This is my PVA tub. I've already got some PVA knocked up. I've mixed some water with there. It's about half and half, but you can kind of see the consistency we got going on. All we're going to do, if you haven't got a roller, get just a nice coat of PVA, taking care not to get it all over the place, and just apply PVA over your whole surfaces just like you was painting. Okay, not too much, not too little. So we're just going to carry on getting these walls PVA'd up. So remember guys, this is for the DIY guy. You've got a rough wall or something, you're thinking, is it worth paying a plasterer to come in and do that, or should I have a go myself? So this is designed for you. You can have a go yourself. What's the worst thing that can happen? You're going to mess it up and then have to get a plasterer in anyway, and he's going to charge you a fortune. I know I would. But getting back to it, so we've just put a nice coat of PVA on there. And you can see it's a little bit thin and it's starting to ball up a little bit on there. I think it's because this is a bit of a washable paint in this kitchen. So what we need to do is we need to let that pick right up, and we kind of at least go tacky. You can leave that to go virtually touch dry. So we've done that. Also, what I just wanted to point out on this other side, I forgot to mention, I've had a crack that keeps developing now. There's a lintel there. This used to be the old outside of the house. I've already repaired this twice in the same manner, and it's popped every time. So there's some movement going on there. So I'm going to have another go. I'm probably just going to do the top, and I'm just going to come down and feather into the top of this light switch here. Also, I want you to notice we're not putting any more fresh beads on, so although the crack continues here, I can't come to the edge of this corner too much because I need to feather out, and I need the plaster to be getting so thin it might start showing the scrim through, because you need a certain amount of depth to get over the scrim, and if I want to feather out and I scrim right up to this edge, the scrim is going to show through. So that's what's going on there. Oh, and another little thing, if you are going to scrim up and PVA, put the scrim up before the PVA, because the scrim won't stick to wet PVA. So the other tools that you are going to need, which are purely unique to plastering, you're going to need a hawk. I didn't see one in Wix, so I'm using this 13 one, which is one that I already have. You can see it's quite dirty. Now, if you buy a brand new hawk, you're not going to have any of this build up on there. I've just cracked this off for now, it's fine, I'm used to it. I'm going to wet this down, but when you get a brand new hawk, it's going to be really, really slippery, okay? So you need to be careful with that, but we'll get onto that in a moment. You're going to need a trowel. I was having a look to see what they had in Wix, and they had this, to my surprise, which is an 11-inch trowel. But the thing to note about this is it's actually made from carbon steel, but it's boasting it's got an anti-rust coating for protection against corrosion and a soft handle grip. Now, a carbon steel, that's going to rust up. If you're not going to be plastering very often, as soon as it becomes wet, the next day it's going to be all orange with brand new rust and stuff like that all over it. Now the problem is, if you don't treat this with oil, if it's going to be left for a long time, this is going to become pretty much unusable. It's not so bad if you're using a carbon steel trowel day in and day out, because it will black up, and you'll just get some residue on there, and every day you're cleaning it, you're keeping this edge clean all the time. So yeah, you might be better off getting a stainless steel if you're not going to be using a plastering trowel very often, but we've got carbon steel. The other thing to note about when you get a brand new trowel, especially a cheap one, this one was a tenner, so I was quite surprised how cheap it was. And I noticed there's no rivets in there, so I'm imagining that shaft along there has been spot welded on. So we'll see how long this lasts. Now, I'm going to have difficulty using this, and the reason being, it's brand new. A carbon steel trowel ideally needs to be broken in. You can get stainless ones that are already broken in, but so basically there's no blade on this. It's hard to show on the video, but the edge here is really square. After time that will get worn away and that will become sharper and sharper like a kitchen knife. The other thing as well, look at how sharp these edges are. They're gonna be digging in. Yeah, look, if we can get real close, it's going out of focus. See how square it all is? So what you're going to need to do, you're going to need to get a brick or something, and you're going to have to grind these edges down a little bit. Take those corners off. You can be quite rough with it, it's carbon steel, so they're quite tough trowels. But yeah, this is a difficult trowel to work with, especially when it's brand new. I would definitely recommend the stainless steel one, but you don't want to cheap out on them too much. This is the tool that's going to be doing your work. The other thing you're going to need something to knock up your plaster. I've got a heavy duty whisk, but for £9 I was able to get this this whisk here, and it just fits into my DeWalt battery drill. I think we're only knocking up a small amount of plaster. For knocking up a whole bag, you might just about get away with using one of these things. If you're knocking up a whole bag, you probably want something that plugs in, like a 240 SDS sort of thing, a big hammer drill or something, but obviously not set on hammer. But for half a bag, what we're going to be using, I'll say this is going to be adequate. And one thing that you're definitely going to need is you're going to need something with a load speed. So so you can start off slowly, and obviously then when you pull your trigger, it goes really fast. You need to be able to control the speed of that whisk. They are the tools that we are going to be requiring for this DIY project today. So I've just taken the time, sorry, the focus, struggling there again, just to grind those off on a brick a little bit, just to take the bite out of those nasty, really, really sharp, aggressive corners. Like I say, this is a cheap trowel, it's £10. The best trowels you can get are Marshall Towns. They're the industry standard, but they tend to be very expensive. And if you're not going to be plastering all the time, I don't know if it's worth you buying one. If you look around, you might be able to find some Tyzek or Rolson or something like that in a stainless steel blade. OX is another company you might be able to find in your local DIY shop or something like that. But the Marshall Towns are a little bit more specialist, and they're the ones that really are the good trowels. Okay, so the PVA's picked up and looks like we're ready to knock up some plaster. Now, one thing to note is I'm using the buckets I've already got. When you put your water in, you need to put in, guess how much you want. So if we mark that to about there, you need to go halfway. When you put your plaster in and get it up to the right consistency, the bucket's going to double. So you're going to put in half of the full amount of plaster that you're going to get out of it. Right, let's do this thing and see how we get on with it. Get on level ground ish. Get this bag ripped open. Give that a little bit of a shake. Sometimes you get a bit of plaster caught up in the top there. That's quite important. Don't put too much in too quickly. Let's get it so we can just kind of see a little volcano of plaster just peeping up through the top of the water there. Turn that speed down. Seems to be doing it. Okay, it does seem to be doing it, but it is a lot of work. It's a lot harder. It's not really big enough, to be honest with you, to do with a bigger paddle. One thing that is going to help you, just wet this down. So a bucket scoop. And make sure when you get to kind of like your consistency, before you want to try and knock the lumps out, you're getting out to how thick you need it to be. Just before you want to knock the lumps out, just scrape around the edges, and that will really help the plaster turn around inside the bucket. Okay, it's virtually there. Just for the last bit, just to knock those lumps out, I've really sped this drill up. There we go. I think that's just about ready to go. Just bang off the excess. Give me another bucket. Give that a good clean off. Just take a brush to that to get the last little bit of residue. Okay, so here we go then. Got a wet bucket. There's a little bit of water in there. Got a bucket scoop. And we've got our wet brush. Okay, it's a nice little 4-inch wet brush. First thing we need to do is wet down our hook. And as soon as we wet this down, this is going to become really slippery again. So it's a good idea to get your trowel, this brand new thing. I'm going to wet this up. And then grab our hook. I'm just going to get a little bit out. Just put that on the hook. You can see that's quite slippery. That's going to try and to slide off. Oh, it's looking quite good. It's going to give it a little wiggle. But just move that gear around the hook just to reduce the chance of it hydroplaning off and falling on the floor. There's a splodge on there. Now you might be tempted to get your hook and keep it flat and try to come this way. But what we're going to do is going to make gravity our friend. If we hold it sideways, it's going to slide off. It's not too bad, look, it's not. Hold it upside down, you've got more chance of it staying up. Okay? So when you try to get the plaster onto your trowel, it's as much as the movement you're doing with your hawk. If you're unsure, get your trowel on there now, turn it up sideways, and just with the trowel, just come up and pinch off the last bit. And that should deliver you a nice bit of plaster on your trowel. And then makes this even more stable because we've taken the weight out of it. When I'm teaching a new plasterer, I tend to get them, put this over the bucket just in case I do drop some, I tend to get them to feed me first thing, so they start getting used to using the wet gear. This is the hardest thing to learn plastering. Okay, I'll spin the hawk round, get it on there, okay, then he walks over to me with it like that, then he pops it on my hawk like that. He walks over to me, gets it all on his trowel, and then delivers it onto my trowel. Remember, you can spin this round. Start off with a small amount. You don't overload your hawk too much because it'll start falling off the ends. But the real trick is you're going to come one way if you need to. If you need to come to the top. Okay, it's the same principle. Okay. So that's if we need it on that side of the trowel to come down from the top. Back on there. And of course, if we're just going to be coming from the side or up, it's the opposite position. Get the trowel on there, then tip it. Take your time and just pinch it off at the end, just so before you get to, otherwise you'll end up chucking a bit on the floor. Okay? Like I say, you don't need too much gear on there. If you're unsure, just get a little bit on the front like so. This is the thing that's hardest to learn. Getting used to doing this. Okay? So now we've got the hang of that. We're going to try and get it on the wall. The same principle applies. We don't need to turn that trowel over towards the wall until we get it on the wall. Now we can close it, and if you're a little bit worried, get your hawk underneath it. Just turn it over and then just carefully squeeze that plaster onto the wall. Same again. Look, it's going in. Then we can close it and move it around the wall. We want to come this way. Don't put too much on there. Start away from your corners a little bit. And when you've got a tiny, smaller amount, a more controllable amount, then you can come into your corners and try and keep them a little bit neater. And see, we've got enough on there now that we can start pushing this around. A little lump there. Come off the bucket probably. Bottom. Come up. Remember, we're holding our trowel quite flat. When you're collecting some more up, put your trowel underneath on that hand. Don't overload your trowel, your hawk, sorry. Here we go again. We're getting the hang of it. Okay, we're just feathering in just at this top here. So what we need to do there is just apply a tiny little bit more pressure just on that surface there, so we start thinning out the plaster. Doesn't really like being thinned out too much, but we're taking it across this short area there, so if there is any sanding or anything, it's only on a small amount. And you don't want to come too far too soon, okay? Another little trick. See here, we've got some screws. Come on over here, Cade. Why don't you have a look? Got some screws, they're really close together. They're for the dog cage, to keep that unruly dog under control. What I tend to do, put them in finger tight so you can get them out, got a little bit of gear, and just take notice where the hole is, and quite often you can still see it. Then put the screw back in. That way you get a clean sweep. Just see the hole there, look. Get a clean sweep, And you continue doing this every time you make a pass. And as the wall gets older and older, that becomes easier and easier to find. See, we've got 2 down here. Mind your nose, Roxy. There's a hole right there. We're just paying attention where that is. See, we can see it because it's just bellying out. Get that back in there. Actually, I'm not going to have enough room to get. I'm going to have to do both at the same time. Down here. You can just about see where that one is. There it is. And we know that other one's got to be in line with it down here somewhere. This is the one I can't find, isn't it? Where is it? There it is, I think. Yep, there we go. There you go. That's how to deal with. Of all the years, been thinking of different ways. Sometimes you need to leave radiator screws in because it's really difficult. If the same radiator is going back on and you remove the screws and plaster over them, it's really, really difficult for the plumber to get that radiator back on. So in some cases, you need to save the screws. Okay, it's quite important to keep the back of your trowel clean as well. So I've just been across those walls. I'm going to wash that off. We'll just have a look what we've done. So it's taken us about 15-20 minutes to put this on. So it's better to get a rough coat over your whole surfaces. Don't worry about flattening it in too much at this point. Okay, just let that go for a little while, not long, 5-10 minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll try and flatten that in a lot better when it's picked up a tiny little bit. Now remember, we've gone over a painted surface, so the reason we PVA'd this up was to actually glue the plaster to the painted surface. If your plaster's sticking to the surface and you can't move it around, that's because your surface is really porous and dry and you didn't PVA it up or seal it up enough. You need to get it sealed up so that your plaster has time to move around and it doesn't dry out too quickly and become unmovable. So on a paint surface, you should be fine. One PVA just for adhesion. If you're going on something that's really bone dry and porous, then you might want to make sure that you get a good few coats of PVA or SBR. I recommend PVA if you're not used to bonding agents, and get that over there so that you really seal it up and stop that moisture being dragged straight out of the plaster too quickly before you can get back and flatten it in. Okay, so it's been on 10-15 minutes or so. I didn't take note of the time. It's now 11:30. We've got a slow day doing this. What we're going to do is we're going to start flattening this in. Do you want to come over a little bit, Cody, so we can see? So we've got all these trowel marks where we did it previously. Now, what we need to do, this is a brand new trowel. It's going to be really difficult to do this with it, and it's very straight as well. We need to kind of apply the pressure to this part of the trowel and stay off the toe of the trowel as best we can. And we're going to come away from this architrave. So the toe of the trowel is hardly sticking in, but we've created this line here. So then we're going to come down a little bit further again and try and take that line out. Create the line again. Come back in. Pressure's on this part of the trowel. I'm using this part of my hand, put pressure here. Staying nice and light on the toe.
Still quite wet as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's still pretty wet. I'm surprised how well it's flattening in. But then again, this wall's in not that bad a condition in the first place. It's just a few little holes and stuff that needed attention. And rather than fill them and sand it. So again, from the bottom up. It doesn't matter if you do get a few little lines in the front there, because we're going to come back and do this again. And make it even flat when it picks up. So we don't have to worry about these screws so much at the moment because we made such a big deal getting them good in the first place. So at the moment we don't need to touch that. Right, I'm going to crack on and flatten the rest of the stuff in, and then we'll get back to it. Okay, it's taken 10 minutes or so just to flatten this in. It's still very wet. I mean, I'm giving you timings, but you know, it's one of those, it's never an exact science. It's still very wet. There's not much point in touching it again for the moment. So we're just going to give it another 10 minutes or so. And let that pick up, and we're going to come back and have another look at it. So in the meantime, you can just get on with something you'd rather be doing than plastering walls on your day off. Okay, so we're just giving this 20 minutes or so. It's picked up quite a bit. You can see it's not coming off on my fingers. It's just drawing little lines in it with my fingers. It's ready to take a second coat. This one's holding back a little bit more because it's on that washable paint surface, so it's a little bit more sealed than the other bits. So we're gonna mix up some more plaster. Whatever you knocked up and put on, when you put your second coat on, it's going to be half as much, and you're going to knock it up a little bit thinner. Okay, so there's the gear that we knocked up for laying down. I've already laid down. It's a lot less, and it's not quite as stiff. I mean, if you're not used to it, knocking it up a little bit stiffer will make it easier to handle. But as you see, I've not flattened that in. We're still using that little Wicks trowel. It's gone on a lot tidier than that first coat. So again, not much point in letting this trying to trowel this up anymore, because you'll be overworking the material. That's something you don't want to do. Just keep working, staying on the same point, and what you're doing is upsetting the granules inside the plaster, and you're bringing all the little granules to the surface and locking together all the thicker granules, and you'll start to create ripples. So at this point, less is more. I have done a theory video to sponge or not to sponge. Have a look at that if you want to have a better understanding of what I'm actually talking about by overworking the gear. So we need to let this pick up. At this point, so I've been a little bit messy on this external because we were using the original corners. It's probably a good idea at this point just to get that off, which I will do with my trowel. And also, anywhere we're feathering out, okay, so I'm only doing this little, I'm doing the bare minimum. Just get your wet brush, and just give that a lick, just to help that thin out. Otherwise, you keep going over that, that will just grow, and you'll end up coming further and further down the wall. So just brush your little edges in, just helps them feather out. Those little brush marks aren't going to hurt anybody at this point. Clean your corners off, and then we're on our way to the finish line. Any little edges like this, look, there's a little bit of staining, the brush is probably dirty, look. Maybe just give that a little brush, just to tidy those sort of things up right at this point, because we've got time to do it now. Okay, so we've just we've put this on. It's been a few minutes. I've washed my bucket out and everything. So all the tools we kind of really need now is your wet brush, a nice little 4-inch wet brush, nothing too heavy, delivers just the right amount of water in my opinion, and our Wicks trowel that we bought this morning. So again, what we're going to do is just going to apply a tiny little bit of water. I mean, as you can see, just to the touch. Still a little bit wet, it's still pimpling up there. Okay, tiny little bit of water, and it doesn't matter if we rough the surface up a little bit. And then I'm going to apply exactly the same sort of principles as we were when we was putting on. Now we're going to start getting a little bit of residue on the trowel. We're going to use that, so this time I'm going to come up to there. Let's see, and I've put it on that side of the trowel. I'm going to use that to really come up and make things tidy. And we're going to push that gear that's coming off back into the wall. We don't really want to be taking anything off at the moment. And if you have got a brand new trowel that you bought this morning with a really square edge on it, you're going to really struggle to do this. It's going to want to be ripping off, so you don't need to be opening that trowel up very much. You need to keep this quite flat to the wall. If you've got an old worn-in trowel, then you can open the trowel up a lot more. That's another thing you can't really teach so well. You just feel that it's hydroplaning over, I'll just hit that screw, over the surface quite nicely, and it's looking better. So basically, if you're going over and it's looking better, then continue to do that. If you can't seem to get it better and you're playing with the same bit over and over and over and over again, go away from it, leave it alone, let it pick up, and then come back again. Like I say, you're better off getting a quick coat over the entirety of the area that you're plastering, rather than staying in one tiny little area, messing with it, and all the while you're doing that, the rest of it's going off. Go over it, get it looking better, come back to it, start at the beginning point. Oh yeah. So after a while, you're going to get too much residue on your trowel, so you need to kind of really keep cleaning that off. Another trick is to wipe that on the side of your bucket, because it keeps your water cleaner for longer. But some plasterers don't like people doing that, and other plasterers don't like people washing it in there, so it depends what sort of plasterer you are really. So if you just come up here again, So this is an indication of how dry it is. Just about, it's not pimpling up on our fingers. So we're a little bit untidy around these internals because we've got clean water in there. Look. And just run a brush across there again, and this is delivering the water, and it's also brushing in that corner there. Look. So in this case here, and by doing this with the brush, rather than splashing it on and getting it everywhere, by doing this with the brush, it's much cleaner, and that we can just feather it out. So we're not making this plaster grow and grow and grow. And it's just roughing up and just bringing that very sort of like 0.5 millimetre of the surface back to life. So you can do a big area like so. And then bring your trowel again in exactly the same fashion as what you would have done when you was putting it in this same sort of movements. So and as I'm coming along, I can feel the plaster, the residue, the smaller the fat or the gypsum which is coming out of the plaster. And what we're doing is we're locking these granules together. There's thick granules, there's thin granules in there, and we're starting to lock them together. So that's what we're getting out of that. Make sure you keep the back of the trowel clean. Just apply a little bit more water, not too much. And again, just taking some care and attention. Remember, again, we're applying the pressure there and keeping the pressure off the toe. And we're chasing this line all the way across the wall. And all the while, we're pushing that gypsum back in there. So you can see, is that coming up on the camera? See how we're creating this line here towards the back of the trowel. So next time we come up, if we're running out a little bit of water, if you feel it dragging, and we're coming up and we're moving that line. Moving that line every time until you get to the internal, and then you brush the internal. And then you come out this way. Again, moving the line down the wall. And that's what you're doing. You're chasing this discrepancy all the way across the wall. So here, obviously, we need to come, and here's where the gas pipe goes in. It's a little bit tricky here. Make a nice job of it. Just fill that up. Just using the toe of the trowel there. I can feel it's a little bit draggy, so I'm just applying some more water. I need to be careful up against this wallpaper. Look. Again, so I'm coming all the way down the internal here. Coming out, pulling that discrepancy line out. And bringing it out to the same place. So it's all here. Then I'm coming across this skirting line down here. Okay. Applying water, so the discrepancy line's there, and in one fell swoop, you should be able to take all that off and come up and meet where you've been before. Just coming down, using that gear to work back in, chasing that line, and coming off nice and easy so that the toe does not stick into the wall. Roughing it up, not too much water, we're not getting it all over the place. Push it in, see these little drag marks? This is because we're using a brand new carbon steel trowel. This is what's going to happen. It's not broken in. So it's going to start causing tiger stripes. What that's doing is catching the larger particles and tearing them out the wall. So we've just gone over it a couple of times there, pushing this stuff back into it to try and reduce that from happening. Another thing that's going to be happening, it just happened then, because it's a brand new trowel, sometimes you're going to get these corners, if you haven't rounded them off enough, if there's any undulation in the wall, it's going to cause a little judder. It just did there, but as soon as we've got it out, might get it. No, I can't seem to get it to judder. So that's all we're going to keep doing. We're going to keep, see, it just did it there. See that little judder line? That's because the trowel's too new. So we're just going to keep repeating this same process over and over and over again. Maybe another 2-3 times, possibly 4, depends when you're happy with it. If it looks good to you and you think, right, that's all right, then it probably is. This is exactly all we do now, and continue all the way doing this until the wall's finished. And it's normally a good indication that the wall's finished when this sludge is reduced right down and there's virtually water coming back out. That will get, every visit you take to the wall, you'll get less and less of the fat coming out. And so when it's the amount of fat coming out is so minimal, and you can see there's a shine starting on your wall. That's when your wall's finished. So that's what we're going to continue to do. Finish these walls, and then we'll come back and have a look at them, I think. Okay, so the time is pretty much 1 o'clock. I've been over it, well, I can't remember, maybe 3 times, maybe 2 times. I can't remember, I wasn't paying attention, I'm sorry. But it's almost there. As you can see, this is the larger utility wall. Managed to stay quite tidy in there. There's a little bit of staining, but we're going to get some clean water on this next time and clean that right off. I mean, the whole thing's going to be painted in here anyway, so it will tidy up. We've actually stay clean on the skirting. I didn't bother going all the way around these sockets. So yeah, one more trowel and I think we'll probably be pretty good. So bearing in mind, that's how long it's taken us. The bag of plaster costs £9.40, and then you put your own free water in there. I was thinking about maybe trying some of the DIY stuff that you roll on and seeing how that went along. When I looked at the price of it, it was like 35 quid, and it was for like 12.5 kg, and that was already wet, already mixed up, so you're hardly getting anything. You're not getting any coverage at all there. I mean, that's probably, I don't know why you'd buy that, to be honest with you. So yeah, if you think about having a go at plastering, then please watch this video and see how you get on. It's probably the cheapest and easiest way to have a go, rather than if you've got a little patch such as these, rather than employ a plasterer to come in for a day who's going to charge you, you know, a couple of £100 or something. So yeah, a little bit of time, a little bit of effort. Doing the methods I just showed you, you shouldn't go too far wrong. Even if there is a few little ripples and lumps and bumps in it, you can still be proud of that. Well, you know you did it, and it was the first wall you plastered. So I think we'll probably get back to you once these are properly troweled up. That Wicks trowel wasn't actually too bad. I've yet to do the final with it. It's a little bit harsh, a little bit, but yeah, we're getting it there. It's working. I'm quite surprised actually for, you know, a first time use on a very, very cheap trowel like that. It's yeah, it's alright. I've been able to use it. Okay, so the time is 1:30. I've given it a little bit longer than probably what it needs to. I've been doing some other bits and pieces, but it was so under control I knew I could leave it for a while. So we're giving it its final trowel now. And so at this point I've switched my water up so it's a lot cleaner for the final trowel. Okay, so the movement with the trowel is slightly different. We need to kind of open the trowel up a little bit more now. Coming down, exactly the same. Make sure we are moving that little line of discrepancy. You can see where the moisture is going to, moving this line. And again, we're coming up. At this point, we're using a downstroke. So we're getting some residue off. Wiping it back in and coming back up. So on the downstroke, we're opening the trowel up a little bit further.
What does opening the trowel up mean?
The angle of the trowel. We're opening the trowel up, and when we come back up, we're closing the angle of the trowel. So what this is doing is planing off the ripples. And notice as well, when you come down at a bit of an angle. They're not coming down straight like this. When you come down with the trowel angled like so.
Sort of vertically, diagonally.
So that's what's planing it off. We just wipe that little bit of residue back on, and then we close the trowel back up and come back. And then we just apply a little bit more water. And again, we just keep chasing that discrepancy all the way along the wall, like we was, how we put it on, how we flattened in, and how we laid it down. And it's important, if you're going to be working with other plasterers, that you do adopt this uniform style. So if you need to share a wall with somebody else or a room, everybody knows what everybody's doing. It's just the automatic thing. You're coming at it in sporadic ways and putting walls on in weird ways, then nobody can work with you. So there we go. I'm just going to continue finishing the rest of this wall off. You can have a look at the sludge we're getting out of there now. It's quite thin. And like I say, when this stuff stops coming out, that's when your wall is over. But because this trowel's so hard and it's got that square edge in it, as I noticed before, we're going to really struggle to stop getting that out. It's going to keep going and going and going because the trowel is so new. Because it's my house, I'm happy that that's good enough for a paint after this, okay? I was just proving a point that you could actually use a cheap Wicks trowel from start to finish and still get quite a good job. And if you remember, when we opened this trowel up, it boasted it had a rust-free coating on it, which I didn't believe for 1 second, and I was right not to believe it. Let's see these little black lines, these little black dots. Can you see them? Are they coming through?
Not particularly.
Maybe just shot out the light shining on it.
Whereabouts?
Well, there's very slight black dots coming through. They're coming through. Look, maybe you can see it there. I can see it.
Yeah, I can see
Yeah,
it.
that's rust starting. Carbon steel trowels rust straight away. And unless you're using them every single day, you keep using them and brushing them, that's going to get like orange and rusty and pitted, and you're going to have to sand that down again. That's why if you're a new plasterer, don't get a carbon stainless unless you're going to be using it every day, or you're going to be taking the time to oil it up after every time you use it. If you get a stainless steel trowel, you won't have to hardly do any maintenance to it, and it's a lot easier to work with, to be honest. Just before we close up, I just want to come back to this little section here, sorry. So, nice little tip. When we got the screws in like this, as I say, as the plaster goes on, keeping these screw holes gets easier and easier. I mean, I could apply some water to that now, but for the final little bit, see, you can take the screws out, you can come over, take off the discrepancies, because it will volcano out. If you keep trying to go round the screw, it will get deeper and deeper around the screw, and you'll get a very unsightly thing. And if you need to put something back on there, you've got this volcano coming out. So because at the last moment we've gone round and the gear's thinner and thinner, look, we can take the screws out, go over it, and just keep the holes. And look at that, it's almost like it's been drilled brand new. It's a great tip for radiator covers, radiator hangers. Alright, I think that's probably it for today. I'll get on and edit this and see if I can get this up tonight. So yeah, thanks for watching. Hope you get some sort of help from this if you're thinking about tackling your own plastering for the very first time. If you're more of an experienced plasterer, we've got loads of stuff on the playlist now. So please do take the time, have a look. I'm sure there's something up there that will find your interest. So you guys have a great day, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks very much. Little thing to add before we leave, you see how it's gone darker here on these colours, on where it's thinner, and look down the side, that's where it's thinner, that's where it's starting to set. When your plaster starts going that darker colour, that's when there's nothing more you can do to it. You've got to leave it alone, and then leave it alone for 3 or 4 days, whatever, depends how deep it is, and it will start to dry out, and it will dry out in the same fashion, where you'll have a definite line of this dark colour and a definite line of the powdery colour it is when you got it out. So when it goes back to that powdery colour and goes away from this darker colour, meaning it's set, then that's when it's ready to paint. So this one for some reason is a little bit behind. It's going a little bit dark around the corners there. So, and then obviously when you paint it, you need to make sure, because it's bare plaster, you need to make sure that you give it a good mist coat with a watered down emulsion. And that's about it. I think that's all I've got to say about that, about plastering. So yeah, like I say, I hope this video helps you out.